Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Knowledge Central, where we talk about different things regarding how to step up our life and career and mostly self-improvement and motivational content. And with this video, I came up with a little bit of something different. It's not a summary of a storybook or summary of a self-improvement book or novel or uh, something related to career, but it's a really nice soft skill, but just a collection of different blogs and a couple of TED Talk videos. And I thought it's a really nice thing to actually make a video on basically how to speak up, right? How do you voice out yourself? And especially with the current challenging era and, a lot of competition around, especially within your country or abroad, it's not straightforward to understand when to speak up, what to speak up, and basically whether should I say something or is it the right time. And I tried to cover a really good grasp of every little thing and give you a very broad picture on how to, speak up and how to create a foundation or start and when to do it and when not to do it and things like that. So I hope it's going to be really informative and hope you guys will like it. So let's start on the first point, which I wanted to clarify before moving on, is when we talk about when should I speak up or when should I say something, it's really important to understand the particular picture you see in front of you where it shows the range of acceptable behavior, right? And what does this mean is this is when you say something, it's okay, right? When you say something, you're doing great. But as you see in the left side, where you're too weak, where when you say something, you're not recognized or you're not noticed. And on the right side, another red zone, where when you say something, it goes a little too strong and you're punished for it. Like people question, wow, how dare you say this? Or how did you have the audacity to say this to that extreme? And to the left side, people don't even recognize what you said. So there is this range of acceptable behavior where outside the boundary, you might actually not being even considered, or at the same time, you might be punished or you might be criticized for being too strong or coming too strong, right? But yeah, it's okay to know there is an acceptable range where it's okay to say some things and also you're doing great, and especially in the middle part. But how do I recognize this and how do I get the idea uh, based on the different people I'm talking to, and how do I actually find this territory? And that's the whole video about. So the idea is to try to be in this acceptable behavior and to be more precise, of course, trying to be in the green zone where you're doing amazing. You exactly say the right things, you exactly use the same tonality and enthusiasm and the right words. And that's what the idea is, to slowly move towards. So another important concept is also the concept of low power double bind, right? Where this range of acceptable behavior is very narrow. And then people either end up on the left side of the red area where you're not even being noticed, and the right side where you're probably be punished. So that's the range of acceptable behavior we saw. And this concept of a low power double bind, where it usually also happens with uh, females or uh, it's some part of the gender. And it's sometimes not about the gender in itself, but it's actually really based on the power and especially the perceived power, right? And it's really important to think in terms of CEO, for example. He has a very wide range of acceptable behavior, right? Because he has, first of all, a lot of power. And not only that, if he's not saying anything, people don't criticize him. No, people just say he or she is probably listening, and then, they just tell the right things at the right moment. But at the same time, as a CEO and with a particular person, uh, when they tell something, it's given a really high weightage, right? He or she, as a CEO, when they tell anything, it's given a weightage because of the perception of the power which lies beneath the CEO. So it's not about gender sometimes, but it's more about the power differences, right? And that's really important to note here, right? And then how to actually, make this acceptable behavior wider. And again, as I mentioned, the concept of low power double bind is one, the idea of self power. Like, what do you think you actually lie in which range, right? Are you in an entry level position in a particular company, a particular university, doesn't matter, or are you at a higher management level, like for example, you're a chief technical officer or something? So that in itself is a really nice idea of, again, with what group when and to speak what, and also the idea of perceived power. So when we want to push this region of acceptable behavior, I'm going there once again. So the idea is to having this green and the yellow area more, and for which we need to make sure that our self-worth in our minds are quite high, and at the same times we are also perceived powerful. This is when our acceptable range of behavior is quite wide, and maybe we need to go towards improving our self-worth, at the same time also making sure others perceive us. And there are different ways of doing it, but I'm not going into detail, but this is a start, and to really grasp the idea of how to expand our range of acceptable behavior and probably avoid the low power double bind, right? Next is also going a little bit on the different tools and aspects and soft skills which might be really useful to actually improve our range of acceptable behavior and reduce the low power double bind. The two concepts we discussed, really cool concepts, and I would really love to dig into a little more. But the idea is there are small basic foundational tools which we can already start using. And mostly this video also has a lot of actionable insights where we can start applying it and making sure that we speak at the right time, at the right moment, and with right tools. One is start advocating for others. And this helps in many reasons, right? Once we start advocating for others, right? He or she, and especially their talent and expertise, we actually increase our perception of self power. At the same time, also the perceived power. It has a small, fractional part of improving that. So when we advocate for others, we become a little bit more competent, empathetic, and also we are perceived powerful, because when we say, okay, he has a particular skill which might be really useful for the team and things like that, which means that you have a really good idea and grasping of not only yourself but also others' ability, and being aware of that in itself is a powerful tool to have. So it's really important to empathetically advocate for others, and this would slightly have a positive impact in how other people perceive us, right? You're more aware of others, and that is a good start. Next one is perspective taking, and this is the key. We need to be aware of what the other person might think or feel when we tell or say a certain thing, right? So we can do a really quick test. And again, I need to uh, mention that I saw this from one of the TED Talks where the speaker tells, and we can actually practice right now. And you need to be a little quick on that. So just take your finger and then quickly write the alphabet E on your forehead, capital letter, right? Like this, right? Doesn't matter. I just did it really fast. So basically, there are two ways of doing it, right? You can actually write an E in one direction, and you can also write the same alphabet on the other direction. And if you think about it, if you have written it in such a way that the person in front of you can actually read it in a proper way, that means you're actually good at perspective taking. You're actually reasonably good subconsciously. Because what this tells, and especially the study of behavior, so when you write in a certain way, and then you actually think the person should be able to read it, so you actually write it in a certain way. But if you have a little bit of a lesser perspective and you just do it real fast, not thinking too much about the person in front of you, which means that we need to have a little extra thought on perspective. So it's a very cool, fun test. But the idea is to always keep this in mind. Who are you talking to? Try to grasp their perspective, right? What does that person want? What does that person is looking for? And things like what are the person is interested? What is he or she, willing to trade off? There are different things, right? And you have different domains. You have different fields. You talk to different people, your friends, your family, your office colleagues, and your boss. Doesn't matter. The idea is to try to have this perception, and when you take the perspective, this perspective view of the other person, you also tend to be having this much more wider acceptable behavior because you're considering the perspective. What you might say might actually uh, be in support of the perspective, or once you have the understanding, the things you say might most probably be better than if you're not taking that perspective. And this is also one of the tools to improve your range of acceptable behavior, right? You're understanding the perspective. You're not going to say something which might really hurt because you know the perspective. And that's the idea, right? So apart from advocating for others, you need to be really willing to take the perspective to tell the right thing. So this is something which I really liked, and especially the quick trick we did to test our perspective taking. And then you need to signal flexibility, right? You cannot be super rigid about something. At the same time, you cannot be super fluffy, super light about it, right? When you're super light, again, you might not be taken seriously. When you're super rigid, that's when you might get punished. Or when I mean by punished is uh, also people, having this a surprise, like how can you say that kind of reaction, right? So you come up too strong. So the idea is always signal flexibility, right? And especially it's really useful in kids, newborn babies, or with them in the perspective, because when you ask them to do something, they usually tend to do the opposite thing. Or it's not like when you tell them, okay, go sit there, or for example, when you ask them to wear this particular dress, it might be a little harder sometimes, but just try to do this maybe next time when you had a difficulty convincing your kid, is ask them which one would they prefer, right? Do they want the red dress or the green dress, right? When you give even a little bit of flexibility, you're much more inclined towards making them do at least one of the thing. But for example, just imagine you give them certain dress and ask them to wear, they might feel, I can have a better dress, or no, I want to wear that dress. But when you have an option A or B, your mind is much more inclined to, okay, I just have this two in mind, I need to pick one, I'm going for one, right? At the end, it doesn't matter. The idea is to make them wear a certain dress, and especially understanding again. So it's partially of perspective taking, where when you have given them options, you make them feel a little bit uh, in a state where they are actually the chooser, they are the decider. And when you give that little bit of psychological trick, they again feel that their perceived power have improved, and they feel like the boss, and okay, it's my choice to wear the red dress. But the idea is to make them wear one of the dresses, right? Or do one of the things. So this is something which is really useful in kids. But of course, we have not our brains might not have evolved that much considering our age or times when we were a kid. So still humans have, you know, much more inclination when we get a flexibility or when we get a choice. We tend to do it rather than ordering someone to do it. So this is also one of the important tools which would be really useful when you are speaking something, anything. When you give flexibility, when you give options, you would be getting at least one of the options, right? Pretty clear. But without options, when you ask them or order them or give them a blank open area, either they might take more time or they might feel this little resistance and little bit of, you know, uh, discomfort, for example. So one of the final two tools with which the video will be wrapped up, so I don't want to go too long on this. The next tool is to gain allies, right? And this is in line with a lot of psychological things. So once you have allies, again, when a lot of people say the same thing, it's very much inclined towards getting approved, or whether getting accepted, doesn't matter what. When one person does something, and if you don't have anybody to support you, might not be the best thing to tell or best thing to make a decision on. But when you have much more social allies, or let's say in office you have much more colleagues who are aligned with you, or in the family, for example, you are in a much more higher position, or in a much more better situation to say something and everybody agrees, rather than not having any allies and then making them think, okay, is this person telling the thing which might be useful or not, and things like that. So when you have allies, usually the person, when you're saying something, much more inclined to be okay with. And this is also so closely related to halo effect, where you tend to agree to a person who you actually like more than agree to a person where you dislike them, right? So when you like a particular person, whatever they do might feel good, right? Irrespective of whether uh it's out of uh line, or it's something little bit uh you know uh a small mistake, you won't even feel that as a mistake, because you like that person, and your mind kind of literally uh, blurs it out, right? So, and the same goes for if you do not like a person, whatever they do, even if it's normal, you might dislike that particular act. And this is a beautiful concept of halo effect, and one of the important psychological things which is we should keep in mind as well. So when we have a lot of allies, it's going to expand our range of acceptable behavior, and vice versa. So it's really important to keep this in mind as well. And finally, this is one of a clear cut, easier way to expand, you know, your range of acceptable behavior. Again, I'm not asking you to become a CEO to have a wide range of say, but the idea is to tap into your expertise, gain more skills, go deep, and tap into your passion, right? Because if you think about especially passion, and if I again ask you to do a small test within yourself about especially things, like when you go to a friend or anybody and ask them about one of their most favorite things in their life, just try to notice how they respond to it, right? And I've asked this to many people. The responses and reactions are going to be same. They tell, their eyes light up, their voice is getting the high tone and the enthusiasm, and you move your arms. You just you're so much into it, you don't even realize that your expressions and uh the bright lightened face and the eyebrows moving up. And if you notice the two people actually having this conversation, even the other person may not have a passion, he literally also, he or she again, lights up and also has the same enthusiasm, the smile, and the expression of the eyes lit up when hearing it. So when you actually tap into your passion, you literally start saying things in a very energetic way, which literally transfers the energy and the same enthusiasm and the vibration to the other person. And they're much more inclined to listen, right? Much more inclined to give you space to speak up. So when you're in love with something, and when your expertise is so high that the other person, the group, or the management, wherever you speak, are again more inclined to offer you a wider range of acceptable behavior. And with this, I think we've talked about 5 important tools where we make sure to actually take their perspective, making sure you have allies, and then when you're passionately talking about something, you automatically get a green light, or you automatically kind of gets you this perceived power or the perception from others that you not only have an idea, but you also take our perspective, you keep us in mind. At the same time, a lot of people are agreeing with you, social allies. And when you have the expertise and the skills, they are much more inclined to offer you a wider range of platform for acceptable behavior. So with this, I think I'll wrap the video, but I felt it's something which I needed to share to a wide audience. And yeah, keep practicing, try to keep getting better every day. And as I complete most of my other videos, it's our habits and consistency matters, and we become what we repeatedly do. So good luck, all the best, and stay tuned for the next videos and similar content. And feel free, of course, to comment or let me know if you want to know about something, or if you want me to talk about something. At the same time, let me know if something could be improved. And please also subscribe to have similar content in your news feed. And I'm really excited and looking forward for my next video. Until then, bye bye.